It's the greatest mystery in literary history. A divisive question with highly contested answers. Who was the writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare? Welcome to Don't Quill the Messenger. Here's your host, Stephen Sable.
Welcome back, Quiller Nation. What an exciting fifth season we are already bringing you of your favorite Shakespeare authorship mystery podcast. And what an exciting episode we have for you right now. Before I introduce our illustrious guest for this episode, I want to thank you, fellow Quillers, for all you do to support the series. With your monthly pledges, as well as the moral support you provide through your emails of encouragement, links to videos and posts of interest to me, suggestions for future episodes, and various fun tidbits and notes that we receive regularly from you. Along those lines, I'd like to shout out to Martin Carden, who suggests we repost our episodes to YouTube with accompanying visuals to assist the listener while listening during the episode. Great idea, Martin. We would love to do that, but it would require a lot of valuable time to accomplish. Perhaps if we are able to get to a higher total monthly sponsor amount, I could justify monopolizing producer Jake's time to make something like that happen for us. But a wonderful suggestion and something that we definitely will stick up on the poster board as a future goal for us. I'd also like to thank Daniel Stephen Crafts for adding, though it is of videotape grain quality, yet it still is there and available to watch. He added the famous Frontline episode about the authorship mystery to YouTube. And so you can find it there. I will post a link to our Patreon social media feed for those of you to find it. If you haven't seen it yet, people, you really need to. Charlton Ogburn will bring you to tears when you watch it. That's the greatest takeaway for me, was you really see the passion that he had for trying to solve this mystery and the grief he feels in his heart for the injustice that is done to the true author here with the way this Stratfordian myth has been thrust upon us for so long. We'll put a link to it in the feed and you'll be able to find it there. It's a great watch, even in the grainy video quality. I know many of us have written to PBS and have requested copies and tried to get them to put out a DVD. And for some reason, they just will not respond and have archived that and have not made it available. But thanks to Daniel, we can at least view it in a third generation style, and it's still worth watching. Previous guest, Robert Boog, you might remember him. He's the author of The Shaky books. He has a new book that he has sent me. Bob, my apologies for not getting to it yet, but I will find the time soon, I promise, and get back to you. I want to thank the many of you also who reached out after our latest episode with Michael Stepniewski. Based on the responses, Michael, if you're listening, you should be seeing some mightily increased traffic to your website these days. It appears that the Tudor-Seymour hypothesis has some new traction with the Quiller Nation, and we're going to need to do some more digging in that area of research. You all have been sending plenty of emails letting us know that you are interested in this and that you'd like to know more about it. Many of you have mentioned that you are visiting Michael's website, and so that seems to be one of our more popular episodes, and tells us a lot about what we need to be digging into and looking for clues. Thank you particularly to John Guarnacchia. I hope I pronounced that correct, John Plummer, and Father David Kinghorn for your very pointed and encouraging comments regarding that episode, as well as the rest of you who have written about it. Father David, I want to tell you specifically, I promise I will be seeking that episode that I have mentioned with Charles Beauclerc about his book, Shakespeare's Lost Kingdom, and his views on the future of the Oxfordian movement. I'm hoping to see him in person at the Moot Court trial event in London March 18th and hopefully line something up with him at that time. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome back my guest for this episode. He really needs no introduction. However, I love to share some details about him. He is a star of stage and screen with a film career that dates back more than 30 years and close to 50 film and television series, including most recently Justice League, earlier on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, not too long ago Murder on the Orient Express. Those are some of my favorites that I chose to include there. 4 major Shakespeare films, 4 of the best, I might add. Appearances in The Tudors, Whitechapel, more recently The Crown, and now the latest and newest, a series that has just arrived called Atlanta. He serves on the board of the De Vere Society in the UK and is the driving force behind the coming DVS-sponsored event, the Moot Court Trial of William of Stratford, to be held at Middle Temple Hall along the Thames on March 18th, 2023. Please, Quillers, welcome Richard Clifford.
Thank you, Stephen. Pleasure to be here.
Did I do okay there? I hope that was a
you
good...
You did very well. Thank you very much.
You have such
I can't believe I've been going that long.
You have such an illustrious career behind you, and I think that you may hold the title of having appeared in more Kenneth Branagh films than any other actor, as a matter of fact.
Apart from Kenneth. That may well be true.
Of course.
Yeah, that may well be true.
It's not vanity theater or anything,
is it? He's
a
wonderful director and a great actor and a great fellow colleague on stage. And a great friend. So that's wonderful.
Well, since we're here to talk about this, what I believe is going to become a seminal event in the movement for a paradigm shift in what we know to be the authorship truth, and with this moot court trial that you have been so strongly involved with, supporting and organizing, do you think that we might?
I'm not
be
sure
able to
about that. He
Kenneth
is a busy
attend?
man, and he is, to all intents and purposes, a Stratfordian, and I don't know whether this would be his cup of tea. You know, it's a curious thing. I'm very pleased that I've been able to get this off the ground, and I'm very grateful to Bernard Richmond KC, who is my lawyer in this, our lawyer in this, the non-Stratfordian lawyer, who was able to set it up at Middle Temple Hall, which, of course, as most people know who are in the know, is where they performed Twelfth Night on Twelfth Night in the Middle Temple Hall. This year is the 450th anniversary of the Middle Temple Hall, and also the 400th anniversary of the first folio of the works of Shakespeare. So I felt that it was a good time to be doing something like this and revisiting the question in a more public way, because I know that in 1989 it was done in England, and I think it's about time we thought about it again. It's really, were they written by Shakespeare, or I put, is it a big cover-up? Did the person who wrote them, or indeed those who wrote them, because there is a theory that there was a collection of authors, of writers, of playwrights, you know, is it a cover-up? Did they cover their tracks by using the man from Stratford, which is the suggestion, who was never known as William Shakespeare? His written signatures do not spell them in the way that they are spelt, indeed, in the first folio. So I think it's going to be an interesting evening. And we're not trying to put forward any theory about anybody else. We're just trying to put forward the idea that the person from Stratford did not write the works that are known as by William Shakespeare.
Well, I think it's a magnificent event that is coming. I think it's going to be extremely important moving forward as we find and seek the truth of this great literary mystery. I can't imagine a better place. And as you say, the 450th anniversary of Middle Temple Hall and the 400th anniversary of the Folio, it certainly is I've been billing it as a trial 400 years in the making, because I believe it has been necessary and needed for 400 years. And I love the premise here, which seems to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to be that what the angle here is that the prosecution will be unable to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this man from Stratford had anything to do with these writings.
Absolutely correct. The person who is defending their view is a man called Bennett Brandreth. He's defending the man from Stratford, and he is a Stratfordian. He's also a writer, a playwright. He's adapted Hamlet, and he in fact performed in a 3-person Hamlet with his father and his wife. All 3 of them were very good. It was a very interesting version of Hamlet. So he's very knowledgeable, and I've known him for quite some time, and I know his dad. So I first suggested it to him, I think, maybe a year and a bit ago, because things were just opening up then, and we had to decide when we'd be able to do it. And it's turned out to be now, which is very exciting. The trial is being done as a moot court, which I really didn't quite understand. I've been, in fact, to one at Middle Temple, one for the students of lawyers. And it has high court judges presiding. It has defense and prosecution, and it has witnesses, and the information is put forward. Then the judges go and deliberate, and they come back and give their verdict. So, of course, we have to work incredibly hard not to let the fact that for so long they have been known as the works of the man from Stratford. We're going to have to work very hard to convince the judges that is not the case, that it is someone else.
Explain, if you would, please, to my listeners who are maybe not familiar with some of the terms that are being used here. Explain exactly some of the terms, such as moot court and what a KC is, and what distinguishes a high court judge as far as the justice system of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely. Well, a moot court is essentially a court where they haven't been able to make a decision, but a hung court where they can't come up with the decision whether someone is guilty or innocent. And it goes before a moot court, which has 3 high court judges presiding, or certainly 3 judges presiding. And it has a prosecution and defense counsel being the lawyers, and they give their views on whether the person is guilty or not guilty. And then the judges go away and deliberate, e.g., they go away and discuss it amongst themselves, and then they come back and give their verdict. So that is what a moot court is. Now, we at the moment...
So in a situation of like a hung jury, so if it was a jury of, say, like here in the States, we have a jury of 12 peers, and if there was a hung jury, meaning that they weren't able to come upon a verdict, this would be the next step, and it would be a trial in front of 3 judges. Okay, I see.
That's exactly it. And I thought it would be a good idea to do it like that because it gave some freedom and it allowed an audience to come in. And in this case, we are going to ask audience if they would want to write a question, which will be handed in and then be asked of the witnesses or indeed the counsels. So there will be participation in that sense. Because whilst the High Court judges go away to deliberate, we will have a little moment where we can ask questions ourselves, and there will be certain performers doing some possibly sonnets or a bit of their favorite Shakespeare work. So it will have, it is also an entertainment. It's a jolly evening, and even if you know nothing about the question, or indeed you just want to know a bit more about the plays of the man, then it's something to come to watch and listen to. And
so what exactly is a KC, and what does that mean and stand for?
Well, we used to, in the life of our dear, now sadly departed Queen, they used to be called QCs, and QC meant Queen's Counsel. So you can be a lawyer and then you become a queen. It used to be Queen's Counsel, and now it's King's Counsel on the ascension of King Charles to the throne. So they're now called King's Counsel, and they are a body of people who have opportunities to be invited to make pronouncements and have a committee of cases discussing some point in law, possibly to do with the government or something pertaining certainly to the realm. So that's what they do.
So did all of the lawyers have to go and change their placards and their business cards and their websites and brochures when the Queen died from QC to KC?
Well, funnily enough, they have been, and it's quite quick to do on anything except for your the plaque on the door of your chambers and indeed your business cards, because everything else is done practically online. I suppose there is some people with writing paper that has to be changed, but let's hope in this day of austerity that people don't change them and they just use them up until they finish their paper or their cards.
And what makes the difference between, like, what exactly are there? Obviously, there must be different levels of magistrates. And, here in the States, we have, we have municipal court judges, we have superior court judges, appellate court judges, Supreme Court judges. So what makes a high court judge, and where does that fall in the hierarchy of magistrates in the UK with regards to the justice system?
I suppose a high court judge, the Supreme Court in America is slightly different from, I think we do have a Supreme Court, but I'm not 100% sure actually. But a high court judge is a judge who takes cases that are not on the circuit. E.g., a circuit is judges will, let's say, live and work from London, but they could travel, as they used to do, indeed in a horse and carriage, around the country to various big towns. For example, York. You could go to York or to Birmingham, and then you preside over a case there. So they travel around. And then you have the high court judges who tend to deal with more important matters. So, for example, when things have come to be, when judgments have had to be made about things to do, certainly we've had this quite recently with our British government, certain things that have had to be clarified to do with Brexit, etc. That gets passed to a High Court judge to deliberate on, and then they come up with their opinion. Now, this opinion indeed might not be taken by the government, but it is an opinion that the High Court judges made, that in their opinion is the most legal and sound pronouncement.
In the case of this court trial that we're going to be attending, and I bought my tickets. They went online this week, and I immediately jumped right online and purchased my tickets, and I have my flight arranged and my hotel set, and my wife and I are both going to be there and are excited to attend. And I encourage all of the listeners who have the means and ability to do so to make their plans to be there, because I believe this is going to help change the paradigm, and you're going to want to be able to say, I was there on that day. But with regards to the event, to help me understand, if we're placing William of Stratford on trial for the crimes of having written the plays, then shouldn't the prosecution be the Stratfordians and the defense be those skeptics and doubters who don't believe he is guilty of these crimes? Or do I have that backwards?
Well, you don't have that backwards. I chose at the beginning of all this, I chose to have the particular lawyer, Bernard Richmond, KC, on the prosecuting side. Now, Bennett Brandreth, who's defending the man from Stratford, he is defending the man's job title, which was author of the plays and poem. It may sound curious, but a prosecutor, in our sense, is prosecuting their witnesses, or indeed at present a witness. They have one witness at the moment, we have two, is asking them what proof they have that this man from Stratford wrote any of this work. And so Bennett is defending him from our accusations.
I see. And then on the opposite side, it would be prosecuting witnesses who are offering evidence that he did not write anything or did not write these works. Can you share a little bit about how that's going to go?
That's correct. In fact, they are witnesses. One is a wonderful lecturer. She's at Goldsmiths, called Dr. Ros Barber. She's a best-selling author and poet, etc. And indeed, when I was doing the Shakespeare authorship question MA at Brunel University, she was one of my lecturers there. So that's how I first met her. Alexander Waugh, who is also a witness for us, he in fact is the chair of the De Vere Society, of which I am on the board. He's a senior visiting fellow at the University of Lecturer. He has, and actually, incidentally, although this is only anecdotal, he is the grandson of Evelyn Waugh of Brideshead Revisited, etc. And a very, very clever man who has many, many YouTube lectures on Shakespeare. And the man that he thinks is possibly the Shakespeare, and John Dee, who was the Queen Elizabeth's astronomer. So they both are well versed in persuading the judges that the man from Stratford could neither read nor write. There is absolutely no evidence that he was able to do so, apart from a few signatures on his will, which, as has been presented quite recently, they could have been written by the clerks of court if the man was unable to write. And indeed, they could have been put in afterwards. So there's no handwriting expert could say that all signatures are written by the same man. So it's very interesting. People talk about spelling and how, well, of course, they didn't have formed spelling in those days, but somebody who'd written as many plays as they had and who'd written as many poems as they had would surely have formed some sort of dictionary, some sort of spelling dictionary, and also would have written their name the same in their signatures each time, rather than just randomly write it differently with different spelling. It just, to me, seems quite curious that anybody would believe that. However, they do, and that's one of their arguments.
Well, yeah, and when you look at the volume that is the first folio, and I don't know exactly how many thousands of words there are in the first folio, though I'm sure there are plenty of websites that have it nailed down to an exact number. I don't recall there ever being any mention of inconsistent spelling in the folio. So either the author of those works that were included in the folio was a consistent speller, or we're to believe that the typesetter changed everything to make it consistent, because, of course, that's what typesetters were doing back in London at that time. So I think you're right. That's a wonderful point. I'm excited. Obviously, many of my listeners are very familiar with Alexander Waugh, perhaps not as familiar with Ross Barber, though she is a delight. And one of the interesting things that I happen to know is I know who Waugh believes to be the top candidate for authorship, and I obviously agree, and that's the Earl of Oxford, but I believe that Ross Barber has a different viewpoint as to the true author. And the interesting point there is that here you have two witnesses who are not there to profess their beliefs on who the actual author is, but are there to establish the validity of the question as to who it is by dismissing who we've been told it is for this, some 400 years now.
That's correct. And neither, you're right. They have different backgrounds, and B, they have different candidates. And in fact, that's really, in a sense, for this particular moot court, there is no point in when we are absolutely not trying to promote any candidate, because if we did, of course, it would have to be days long, this trial, because each candidate being put forward have to have their own witnesses, etc. And we certainly don't have time for that. But it is about time that people questioned more the background of the man from Stratford and the background of the person who wrote the plays, in my judgment, not the man from Stratford. However, there is a theory that there were a number of writers. The play Edward III, there's one scene that seems very telling in that it is written by a hand that could have written Hamlet, etc. But a lot of it doesn't feel like that. And I know we're talking about feelings as opposed to knowing, but that's all we can go on at the moment. And I think what is important for the future is that people do discuss this and do question it and do forensically study it. Like a scientist, they only say something is true if they've tried to prove that it isn't true, if that makes sense. That's quite simplistic, but they keep proving that it's not going to happen, and it keeps happening until they realize that actually they've tried every single way for something not to be the case, and it is the case. And I feel with the works of William Shakespeare, that's what we need to do more of. And that's why many of the people who are not Stratfordian are all discussing this very thing. Unfortunately, the people from Stratford, the Stratfordians, tend to clam up and not discuss. And I feel we should do, because knowledge only comes through a sharing of information.
Now, once the lawyers, are they lawyers? Are they barristers? What's the actual proper term?
No, they're lawyers. They're lawyers.
Rosemary Laughlin has schooled me on this, and I keep forgetting the difference between a lawyer and a barrister and how that works in the UK. But once the council, there's a good easy word to cover them all.
Yeah.
Once the council have concluded their lines of questioning and the witnesses have given their testimony and both sides rest and the case is submitted to the panel of 3 judges, they go into another room, into chambers, and they deliberate on that evidence, right?
That's correct.
Are they given a specific time limit on how long, or is it just however long it takes for them to hash it out together? How does that work?
They will be given a length of time, because, of course, the event is 2 hours long. And we want to give as much opportunity to the witnesses, but also an opportunity for them to be able to deliberate properly. And I think the interval and the questions from the audience will take up about 40 minutes of that time. And then they will come in and give their verdict.
And generally in a situation like this, the reason I'm assuming that there are 3, an odd number, is so that there can be a majority rule. If 2 out of 3 come to the same consensus, then the third is overruled, and that is the verdict. Is that correct? Essentially,
a very democratic process.
What we, of course, would be hoping for is that we get a unanimous decision.
Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful? We shall see. I mean, that's part of the interest. The interest of this is that we don't know. I mean, it has been tried in the past. It was tried with your Supreme Court, and in the end, they just said, "Well, as most of what has been written about the man is the man from Stratford, we're going to go that way." But nowadays, in 2023. A lot has been written about other candidates. A lot has been written about how it could not be the man from Stratford. Every biography that the man from Stratford seems to, that is produced about the man from Stratford, is so full of conjecture that you couldn't say that this was evidence. You just say, well, it's conjecture, and it's what lots of people think or want to think. You know, there's a great difference between, as was put in by your previous incumbent administration, my truth or alternative facts. In my view, with something like this, yes, there are people choose to have alternative facts, but there are no alternative facts. And there is only one truth.
Truth is truth to the end of reckoning, that type of a thing?
Yes, I think so. I think so. I mean, for someone to say, well, this is my truth, it just means really what they're saying, this is my opinion about it.
Well, and, that's obviously a very philosophical debate that covers a wide range of areas in today's modern times with regards to many things such as gender, climate, vaccines, even, right? So that's a very interesting philosophical argument. But back to these judges who are going to be hearing the case. How difficult was it to get 3 high court judges to sign on to participate in this type of exercise?
Well, at present, we only have 2. We're waiting confirmation from a third. Once the date was set, a couple of people unfortunately fell by the wayside because they weren't available or they weren't in the country. So we're still waiting on confirmation on the third. One of them was there right from the beginning and was available, which is marvelous. The other one came in shortly afterwards, which is also wonderful. You know, they're all very busy people. We wanted to make, in a way, this process as relevant and as up to date as possible. And so we are using, you know, most of what's happening are people who are still in the business of doing it. Sir Christopher Floyd, who's a Privy Councillor, he served as Lord Justice of Appeal. So that's, you know, you have the High Court and then you have the Appeal Court. When things go to the High Court and then people are appealed against something and then they go to him. He only finished doing that in 2021. So he's very relevant and very current.
Indeed.
To this. Dame Joanne Smith is sitting. So she's very relevant. The witnesses are relevant because they're all still doing what they do. And indeed, the King's Counsel are both presenting cases today. So, you know, I'm trying to make this as relevant and up to date as possible. And I think that having these people there will make that so.
Well, obviously, when it comes to the KCs, I learn fast. I'm learning these terms. When it comes to the when it comes to the KCs, they obviously are allowed to have a bias on one side or the other because they are there to represent, quote unquote, their clients or their witnesses and to support their testimony and to bring out that proper testimony. But I can assume that these high court judges have agreed to follow what the laws of evidence are and to come into the event without biases and without relying on anything they may have read or been exposed to prior, and only weighing in to their deliberations what is presented before them at the time in the hall. Have those parameters been set that way?
Oh, yes, that's my expectation. No judge should enter into a case with a preconception of something. And as these judges are well aware from their huge body of work, that they don't go in there with a closed mind. They go in there with an open mind. Yes, the councils the cases happen to be for and against, but Bennett Brandreth is a Shakespearean, if you want to term him like that, and he's written a book on rhetoric, and the Royal Shakespeare Company asked him to go into rehearsal and talk about rhetoric when they're doing plays that need that form of attention, because a lot of actors really don't understand it, but a lot of the plays we seem to understand from every word that's written, that the person who wrote them had to have had a huge knowledge of the law to have written the plays. Every lawyer who's ever studied them says they cannot not have either studied law or were lawyers. So, you know, Bernard is not particularly, he's not a non-Stratfordian. Bennett is a Stratfordian. Bernard is not necessarily, but, you know, he has agreed to take, in terms of a court, he's agreed to take the case. So he will be primed on what is important to get the correct outcome.
He has such I can't wait I hope I have the opportunity to at least meet him. He has such a absolutely awesome name. It's almost Shakespearean itself. What a fabulous, fabulous name.
Oh, I know. No, it is. You're quite right. he is a wonderful lawyer, wonderful KC. He does a lot of social cases, so he's defending people who can't afford huge fees to give to lawyers. He's a very socially motivated person in that sense, which is wonderful. And Bennett's a wonderful man in his own right as well.
That's fantastic. It's such an exciting premise, and I know it's going to be such an exciting day and charged with tons of energy in that room. What is the capacity for audiences for that particular hall where this is going to be presented?
Well, we've set a target, I suppose, for 200 members of the audience, but we could go higher than that. We're trying to make it. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Middle Temple Hall. It is a huge medieval hall. I mean, it's beautiful.
No, I have not, and I look forward to it. I had such a magnificent experience when we were at Hatfield House back in October, and just exploring the architecture and the history and walking the gardens, which was also just a delightful thing for me that day.
Yes.
And then, the day after that event, I had a rental car that visit. And so the day after the event, I drove up to Castle Heddingham and explored the keep.
Yes.
I explored the keep there, and then also St. Nicholas Church there and nearby. And it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was just so fortunate that I happened to walk into the church just about 10 minutes before Sunday Mass was about to begin. And the minister there was so delightful to show me around the church and point out some of the historical elements of the church and invite me to stay and worship with her congregation that afternoon. And it was so overwhelming, all three locations, whether it was Hatfield House or the keep at Castle Heddingham or the church at St. Nicholas, to be in a building that was so old and had so much history. Here at St. Nicholas Church people had been praying there for almost 1,000 years. And we just don't have that kind of history here in the United States, So I can't wait to walk into Middle Temple Hall and just absorb whatever the history those stones are holding and the energy of the people and the presence that has been there for so long.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a baby compared to the other buildings that you've mentioned, the church and Hatfield Palace, because it's only 450 years old. But it's still an old. I mean, it looks quite medieval. And it has stained glass windows, so it's wider than Hatfield Palace, but it's not as long. And I think we could probably fit about 300 people in there if we wanted to, but we've set the ticketing so far as 200, and we'll address it further if we need to.
And I think it's wonderful that it has been decided to open the entire event up to the public, not just to, say, DVS members or people who are affiliated with the authorship question and the mystery that we are trying to solve, but that it is open to the general public. I don't know what type of efforts are being done to promote it to the general public, but do you have an idea of any target audiences that you have attempted to draw to the event, whether it be universities or other members of the legal profession or people like that who might have a more heightened interest in this mystery?
Yes, we are targeting absolutely the legal profession. We're targeting the other candidate societies, of which there are many. The general public are being made aware of it. When Mark Rylance and the Shakespeare Authorship Trust did a reading of his play about William Shakespeare at the Old Vic Theatre. It was sold out, and I was very lucky to be there. And in the interval, people were coming up and saying, I had no idea about this this conflict, which it is, who wrote them, who wrote the plays. They said, I had no idea. It is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So that's why we opened it to the public, because I feel that everyone should have a chance. And it's really about the history of our greatest poet.
Indeed. And
you know, if you just want to know more about William Shakespeare, e.g., was he the man from Stratford, or could he have been someone else? That'll give you something to go home and think about.
I find that every person that I meet who discovers this great literary mystery becomes instantly intrigued and, as you say, fascinated by the argument. And you're right, many of them had never heard before any of this. It wasn't introduced to them in school. It wasn't ever suggested. They never read anything about it. They didn't know there was a question at all in any way. And in many cases, they actually become almost incensed that this has been hidden from them or kept from them in their education. And I think it fuels their desire to find the answers even further. The only people who I have found who balk at even asking the question are those who have some sort of vested interest, e.g., to use your term, applies here is they have a dog in the fight, and those are the people who then become dismissive and vitriolic sometimes, and of course they start throwing out ad hominem attacks, and that you're not going to get anywhere with them. But to the basic person who doesn't have a dog in the fight, I think it is so compelling that they are drawn to it uncontrollably at times.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Stanley Wells of the Shakespeare Institute, now retired, called both Mark Rylance and Derek Jacobi mad, which was quite an insult. However, he did do that. But then he has a vested interest in keeping, if I may use the word, myth going, and keeping Stratford going, and keeping the rather improbable buildings that they say, these, Shakespeare's mother and wife and blah, 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 and tourists are going to them and thinking, this is really where Shakespeare was born, or this is really where Susanna was born, or this is really where Hamlet was born, when in fact it's not true. It's just not true. They tried to have it they tried to libel them by saying that as it's not true, you should not be promoting this as a going concern, which is what it is, because they make a lot of money. But unfortunately, it didn't get anywhere because people like the idea of having this mystery person who or slightly mysterious person who did what he did and came from very humble beginnings. We are always attacked. You're just a snob because you think it's not Stratford. It's not the man from Stratford, and you think it has to be a posh person, which couldn't be further from the truth. I would love it to be someone who grew up learning and became the person who wrote the plays and poems, but I don't think that's the case. And I think even more so in the 16th and 17th century, it could not have been possible.
Well, one of the things when we look back through history, whether it be in literature or in science or mathematics or any form of other art, like you name it, and there are plenty of cases where someone has come from humble beginnings and risen to extreme prominence, but we're always able to connect the dots as to how that happened. They were mentored by someone who had greater skill. They were influenced by a proper education. They had access to certain materials or resources that other people from basic means did not have. In this case, with this man from Stratford, we have no evidence whatsoever. There are no stepping stones to demonstrate how he would have come from these humble beginnings to achieve such prominence. And I think that's the giant gaping hole in the story that no one on the Stratfordian side wants to admit or accept.
That's very true. They talk about, he went to the Stratford Grammar School. A, there's no evidence. B, a child would go there with a knowledge of Latin, certainly, and Greek. And they were 6 years old or something. So you couldn't just pop in there. And how did he pick it up? Who did he pick it up from? He wasn't a Mozart with his father forcing him to play the piano in front of people, earning money. This was a man who appeared suddenly. And one has to take it in many ways. Do we take it that he was paid to keep his name prominent? We don't know. How did the man from Stratford make so much money? We don't know. I mean, the only absolutely valid he's in a list of players. But for the most part, he's being taken to court for various things. There's proof of him buying the house in Stratford. There are various proofs, but nothing leading to being a writer or a poet or a playwright. There is absolutely no connection. And it's curious that those people who say it is the man from Stratford bang on about, his will, they probably lost a page where it said that the books were all given to so-and-so. Well, isn't it curious that his daughter, Susanna, married a doctor who could both read and write, who wrote a diary about prominent people in their area, but never once, not a single mention is given to his incredibly famous father-in-law. Not a single mention. And you do think, well, if you look at it, that lack of evidence is possibly evidence that he didn't do what we're all now meant to believe he did do. Just add all these things together. My view, I would love to do a scientific documentary, e.g. have scientists work on this and come to some conclusion. So it's a proper scientific study. It's all very well certain authors coming up with, well, this he should have done this, and this is what, or his lost years, this is what he was doing in his lost years. Nobody knows. The truth is, nobody knows. Not so people know the timeline, for example, of the Earl of Oxford. They know where he was. They know what he did. They know when he was in court. They know he was abroad. They know when he was detained. But there is absolutely nothing about the man from Stratford at all. And however you look at it, there's a wonderful book by Diana Price, which I hope everybody reads because it is brilliant. She doesn't lay claim to any author, but she does explain very clearly what each possible candidate, whether they went to school, whether they went to university, whether they were lawyers, whether they were known as writers, etc., etc., etc. And it is curious that of all these, and I know it's her own particular point of view, again, that is that conjecture or what? No ticks are put by the man from Stratford. We don't know whether he went to school. We know where most of the other candidates went to school. We know where they went to university. We know what they wrote. We know where they lived. We know this, that, and the other. You know nothing. I mean, you know where Shakespeare, the man from Stratford, lived, but you really know nothing about his work. And that's the important thing. His work is more important. If we looked at this man and we came from Mars and we had no idea about plays, and we looked at the evidence that there is about the man from Stratford, you'd say he's, that's interesting. He seems to have some money. He keeps grain when there's a bit of a famine. I'd say famine, but when there's a shortage, is that a famine? I don't know. He gets taken to court for various things. He takes people to court for various things. But there is nothing about him being a playwright. There is no evidence at all.
Well, it's curious because, as you mentioned, some of the only details we do have about his life demonstrate that he is no stranger to being prosecuted. So this should come as no surprise to him, this moot court trial that is going to be held, because he's been in court before. He was charged with grain hoarding. He was charged with tax evasion. He sued somebody else for some small, tiny amount of money. We do have those documents. So there is a bit of a history of legal problems for this guy. So if he were to show up on March 18th, he would be very familiar with the processes as far as that goes, I guess.
That's very true. If he's looking down or up, he'll be interested to see how the trial goes.
Well, one of the things that I think is particularly awesome about this event is, truthfully, the fact that you have been one of the driving forces behind it. The fact that you are on the board of the DVS. I think the entire world knows your husband, Sir Derek Jacobi, and he's a patron of the DVS, and also I can assume being a very supportive partner in your endeavor with this. And whether you like it or not, there comes a bit of a prestige with your credentials as such a prominent actor with such a great filmography behind you. And we do know that there are others out there who have a similar prestige in the world of our world of theater and performing and film and screen. And I'm wondering if there could be some way that we could get some of those others to be at this event and to have some of the same prominent people who have been mentioned in the past or have outwardly said that they are skeptics in the past, all collected in one place, I think would really help to put this on the map and wake up the world to some degree. Is there any way that we could make some sort of effort to bring in folks like Jeremy Irons and Ralph Fiennes and Keanu Reeves and Malcolm McDowell, and the list goes on, Vanessa Redgrave, of famous actors who have, Mark Rylance, you mentioned earlier, who have expressed that they don't believe this guy could have possibly been the guy?
Well, I am doing that very thing. I'm writing to people. I've actually just had an email today. Sadly, Mark is not going to be in England, so he can't come. So I'm waiting to find out from other people. I would be equally happy to have people there who are Stratfordians. I mean, I think it's, we're not exclusive. We are inclusive. But we'll see. We'll see who's going to turn up on the night. I think it will be interesting. But I know some of them. I don't know others. But I am writing officially as the producer of this very interesting event to see whether people are free and can come.
Oh, and you're absolutely right. And shame on me for not even thinking that along those lines, but you're absolutely right. It would also be awesome to have prominent Stratfordians, those such as we mentioned, at the top of the broadcast, Kenneth Branagh and others who have, maybe engaged in some mild debate on set with those actors who have been Oxfordian or who have been Marlovian or skeptics in nature. But it would be great to have some of the staunch Stratfordian names that exist out there. I believe Dame Judi Dench is one, and I know you've worked with her in the past. I would think it would be fantastic to have them there as well, even if it's just to support their guy or just to open their minds just a touch to the ideas being presented at the event.
Well, I think, yes, I absolutely agree. I think the people who are non-Stratfordians are more likely to turn up. I think the people who are Stratfordians, this sort of thing has been discussed for many years. I sometimes don't talk about it to certain people because I know their opinion, and a lot of people just poo-poo it. They go, oh, rubbish, absolute rubbish. Of course it was the man from Stratford, and of course it was this, of course it was that. And you just think, well, okay, but your mind is closed here, but I absolutely respect it. I have got people coming who are, they're not doubters, they're not even skeptics. Some just think it'll be a fascinating debate, whatever it is. It's interesting. So that's why I feel that it's not just for anti-Stratfordians, which it clearly is not. It is for people who are interested, in my view, in the truth of it. That's what I'm looking for. That's why I became interested in the subject. I became interested in the subject for many reasons, and one was social history. I was fascinated by social history. And I'm fascinated by the Elizabethan period. I'm fascinated, and the Tudors. In fact, I'm fascinated by the Tudors. And to look through history and see politically why people did things, see domestically why people did things is fascinating to me. So this period is very much my period. And as I say, I did do the Shakespeare authorship question MA a number of years ago. Sadly, I didn't complete it because I was too busy. And it's not running at the moment. I would start it again, but because I'm not quite so busy now. But we want people to come and listen to an interesting debate about why it's not the man from Stratford.
Indeed, absolutely. And so to share with my listeners how they can attend, if you are looking to get tickets for the event, as Richard said, their target audience is up to 200 people, but they can go larger if necessary. There is an Eventbrite link. We will be putting that on our Patreon social media feed for those fellow quillers who know how to get to our Patreon page at Don't Quill the Messenger, Patreon Don't Quill the Messenger. We will also be including a link to the DVS website where you'll be able to find more information about the event and some of the other details about the event as well. So you can access it through there as well. And we'll be putting that on our website, on our homepage, don'tquillthemessenger.com or don'tquillthepodcast.com. And Richard, what is the easiest way to get to Middle Temple Hall if they're coming somewhere from the UK or if they are staying somewhere in London? I don't know how the train systems work because the only time I was there was in October, and I rented a car and did the craziest thing, which is drive around England, which was a terrible idea, by the way. But tell us tell us any other details that you think that they may need that they can attend.
The most important thing is that the tickets are only on sale on Eventbrite. I've done that, so it makes it a simple exercise. It's very easy to get on there. and it's very easy to buy tickets. It's not a complicated process. You need a Visa card or an American Express. Anyway, whatever. It's very easy to do. And as to getting there, and also incidentally, we're doing it as a charity event too. So it is in aid of a pupillage system at the Middle Temple. Pupillage system are training lawyers who cannot get a grant. We don't have grants in England anymore, but they may have bursaries. This is to support pupillage and pupillage bursaries for Middle Temple. So all the money is going to Middle Temple. It's it's just a lawyer's charity in that sense.
Here in the States, we would refer to that as scholarships, right? So it's to provide. Here we call them scholarships, which is basically funding assistance for schooling, right?
That's absolutely correct. It's to help these pupils who are from less wealthy backgrounds to be able to continue to train as lawyers, because we all know it takes a long time. It's very easy to get there. You go to wherever you are in London. You go to Temple Tube Station, which is on the Circle and District line, and you get out of there, and it's about a 4-minute walk. It's very easy.
And from what I can tell from the maps that I've looked at in the topography, it looks like it's a very pleasant and beautiful walk as well.
It is a lovely walk. It's by the river. Temple is by the road that leads that's on by the Thames. And it is, you literally come out, you walk along a bit and then turn left and go up a very beautiful Middle Temple Lane, it's called. And then you get to the temple, Middle Temple.
Fantastic. And so to reiterate to the listeners, gang, if you go to Eventbrite, if you want to just bypass any other website or links, you can go straight to the Eventbrite website. This is how I did it. I went to the Eventbrite website. I typed in moot court trial. That's all I needed to type in, and it found it. It found the event immediately. It took me to the page. I selected 2 tickets, and as Richard said, any credit card. It will also accept debit, and I used PayPal, as a matter of fact. I just used my PayPal account to purchase my tickets. And those of you who are listening in the States, when I purchased my tickets this week, which is the week that this podcast is landing, at the time that I purchased, the exchange rate pound to dollar was 0.78, which tells you that the pound is struggling a bit right now. But what that means is that it was actually less money for us here in the States to purchase the tickets. So get on that right now, because that exchange rate fluctuates and could be changing over the next few days.
Well, thank you. That's a brilliant plug for it, because the ticket is that we only opened the ticketing 2 days ago, so and not many people have heard about the event yet.
Well, there you have it, Quiller Nation. Our magnificent guest for this episode to help us promote what I again say is going to be a seminal event in the future of solving the Shakespeare authorship mystery. You want to say you were there, so make sure you make your travel arrangements now. And again, because that exchange rate is what it is very inexpensive to travel to England right now, especially if you're coming from the States. I discovered, because I just did a little bit of research, it is actually, and I live in rural Southern Oregon, so I have to do a couple of hops in order to get to London. But I discovered it's actually cheaper for my wife and I to fly to London to attend this event than to fly to most any major city here in the U.S., whether it be Chicago, New York, Boston, or whatever. So if you were planning on some sort of a spring vacation, I encourage you, make it London, England, and make sure you're at the moot court trial of William of Stratford. You don't want to miss it.
Thank you very much, Stephen. That's lovely.
My pleasure,
Really
Richard. I thank you so much for your time. You said a minute ago you're not as busy now as you have been, but that I find that hard to believe with producing and planning this major event and your recent work on the new series Atlanta. Is there anything else you have coming up that you can share with us? A little sneaky tidbit about what's on your plate as an actor?
There's just no. The things that I am working on and with. So watch this space.
Very good. I will look forward to seeing you at Middle Temple Hall on March 18th in person, my friend.
Very much. I look forward to it too. And meeting your wife.
Thank you. She is, don't be surprised if she gets a little weak in the knees and I have to hold her up when she meets you. She's very, very excited to meet you.
I hope she's not listening.
Oh yeah, she listens to every episode. So when she hears this, she'll come home and say, "Why did you say that? I won't get weak in the knees." Yes, she will. She will. I'm telling you, she will.
Well, that's very sweet. That's lovely.
Looking forward to it. Thank you again, brother, and we will see you March 18th.
Yep, see you in just over a month.
Before we conclude this episode, fellow Quillers, I want to thank our very special guest, Richard Clifford, once more for joining us to share so many exciting details about the coming moot court trial. I am so excited about this event, which I hope was evident through our interview with Richard. Remember, fellow Quillers, there will be more details in the feed of our Patreon page. And if you haven't visited our Patreon page and gone through the social feed there, what are you waiting for? It's not just a place for you to become a regular sponsor of the series. It's also a place of information about past and future guests, links to research and video content, fun facts, pictures, and more. You can find it easily on the homepage of our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. don'tquillthepodcast.com. It's a little red button right there. It says Patreon. You click on that, takes you right to the Patreon page, and you can see the social media feed there. The Patreon page is also a great place, and the website is a great place for you to send friends and family who might be interested in listening to the podcast. And if you're not sharing the podcast with others, please do. You trust me, you won't sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist to just recommend a cool and interesting podcast that you listen to that you think is intriguing that they may enjoy as well. So please share it and also share that social media feed because that might pique their interest as well. Visit regularly at don'tquillthepodcast.com to stay informed about all things Quiller. I'd like to remind you of ways that you can help us share what we do with others as well, which is the easiest way. Give us a little boost by making sure you rate and review the show at the various platforms where you stream your content. Just a few moments to give us a 5-star rating and a few words of support for our content helps others out there discover the series and become fellow Quillers like yourself. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to announce our February Quiller of the Month. And here to do the honors, of course, is our very own producer, Jake.
Thanks, Stephen, and hello, Quillers. Pleased to be back once again with the honor of naming this month's Quiller of the Month for the month of February 2023, our Valentine's Quiller. If you're not familiar with what this is, of course, you got to become a patron over at patreon.com/don'tquillthemessenger. Become a patron of qualifying tier, and you are entered into this monthly contest in which the winner is named our official Quiller of the Month and, of course, gets an item of their choosing from the shop. Without further ado, I'm going to spin our randomized wheel of names, and the February Quiller of the Month is Jen S. Congratulations, Jen. I believe this might be Jen's second time as Quiller of the Month, which just goes to show you there's no limit to the amount of times you can win. Every month that you are a qualifying Quiller, you get entered into the contest. Thank you so much for your continued support of this little program. Keep an eye on your email, Jen. We will send a message about how to claim your winnings. And back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Jake. And congratulations to our winner and to all of you who have been selected over the previous months as our Quillers of the Month. We truly do appreciate your loyal support. And remember, Quiller Nation, you too can become an official Quiller by visiting our Patreon page and signing up today. All the links and details are available at our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. And don't forget to send us your emails with tidbits of information, suggestions, comments, and critiques to contact@don'tquillthepodcast.com. Contact@don'tquillthepodcast.com. Until next, Quiller Nation, until we meet again, say it with me out loud so that people in the car next to you, or surrounding you at the gym, or in the cubicle next door at work, or across the coffee shop, or wherever you may be listening to me and hearing my voice right now, say it so that other people can hear it. Keep asking questions.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a rating and review in your podcast player. For even more, visit our website, don'tquillthepodcast.com. There you can find official merchandise in our shop, as well as a link to our Patreon. This show is made possible by people like you. We hope you'll consider showing your support by becoming a monthly patron, where you'll receive bonus material and tons of exclusive perks. You can also join in the conversation on our Discord and by following us at Don't Quill the Pod on all social media. All of this can be found at don'tquillthepodcast.com, don'tquillthepodcast.com.
Dragon Wagon.